All right. Sorry, eating jelly beans again before I was switching over to go live over here in Gossip. I just went live for an hour on Stephen Avery Project to discuss today's filing. So, all right. So I'm going to read it first. I'm only reading it the one time. I read it at the beginning of the live that I did on Stephen Avery Project. And that live is posted here in Gossip, as well as this document is posted. And also Kathleen's tweet about this has been posted here. So you can get all that information for yourself. But I know I'm graceful. So I will read this. This was emailed to me. I think it is really great now that, we have a lot of people who, respect the work that we do here at Stephen Avery Project. Now, I mean, this isn't something I just get because I get it. I actually have to pay for this. But I believe it's like $2 is all I have to pay for the filing from today. But I didn't even know that there was a ruling. I was leaving a restaurant and I got an email with it on there. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then I just sent it to the moderators since I was now driving home from the restaurant. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but get this posted. So I hadn't even read it until I got home and read it live on Stephen Avery Project. I typically on these big events, when they happen, I go live on Stephen Avery Project first because that's our, bigger one where everybody is. So I go there first. But here in Gossip, we're a tighter little family here. And the people that are in Gossip, you're the ones that really go in deep about the case and other cases. You don't get mad when I talk about other cases here. So I come on here again or as well. So if anybody in here wants to discuss. So let's first read today's ruling. So if you're posting anything at this time, I'm not reading or responding to it because I'll be on my screen over here reading this one. So it is on letterhead from the Office of the Clerk for the Wisconsin Court of Appeals. And it is to Honorable Angela Sedkowitz, who is Judge Flowers. And the clerk of the circuit court, Lynn Zygmunt. And then two assistant attorney generals, one district attorney, which is Jacqueline LeBray. And then there is Stephen Richards, lawyer, and then Kathleen. And it says, you are hereby notified that the court has entered the following order. Stephen A. Avery, by counsel, appears from the circuit court's denial of his Wisconsin statute 974.06 post-conviction motions. He moves this court to stay the appeal and remand to the circuit court. So stay, pause, and go back down to circuit court, so that he may raise new claims premised on the recent discovery of, now when I do this, it actually has the quotes in there. It's not me being a douchebag going $1 million. A previously undisclosed police report dated September 20, 2011, which, according to Avery's appellate counsel, reflects law enforcement's transfer to multiple suspected human bones from the Manitowoc County gravel pit to Whiting Funeral Home for return to Teresa Hallback's family, unquote. All right. So this is again saying that when Kathleen took over the case 3 years ago, they hid from her that in 2011, they gave this bone to the Hallback family. So it wasn't until people just FOIA'd that, and FOIA stands for Freedom of Information Act, until people had FOIA'd the documents where you can now see on the evidence log that Wiegert signed out the bones and Karen Hallbach signed that she received them on September 20, 2011, which this is evidence. You're not allowed to take evidence out of evidence, because they have to, as long as somebody is incarcerated, you have to keep that for testing, for future testing. So, and if you are going to return it, you have to ask Stephen's permission. But why are you returning it when Sweaty Sweat claimed it's not Teresa Hallbach? Said, we don't even know if these are human bones. Don't look at these bones. So that's what a previously undisclosed police report. And from the get-go, let's just say it's props to Carol Ann Fitzgerald, who is the one, many people were investigating this lead, but she is the one that brought it to Kathleen's attention. So she gets the credit for this. This is Carol Ann Fitzgerald's find. All right, back to the filing. Avery alleges that the state violated its statutory duty to preserve evidence, see Wisconsin Statute 968.205, and that the state's actions violated Avery's constitutional due process rights, see Youngblood versus Arizona. The state has filed an objection to Avery's remand motion on the ground that it constitutes a new and separate action which is unrelated to the orders Avery presently appeals, is unnecessary to the resolution of his pending appeal, and would result in unnecessary delay and litigation. Fuck you on your unnecessary delay. Unnecessary delay is Stephen and Brendan being in prison for the last however many years. The state's objection points out that this is, in effect, Avery's third remand request. The state's objection does not address the merits of Avery's claimed statutory and constitutional violations, and it has not responded to Avery's supplemental filings alleging the possible destruction of evidentiary items, which, it appears, the parties previously agreed to preserve. It appears. Kathleen just showed that in her most recent filing, that over and over again, even back to 2006, it was always agreed upon that this bone existed and they should be turning it over to the defense for testing. Always, always. They always said they would do it. So saying it appears, that's so snarky. The state suggests that the appeal is languishing and that if Avery wishes to pursue new claims outside the scope of Wisconsin statute, blah, 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 post-conviction orders presently on appeal, he could dismiss the pending appeal or wait until its conclusion to file his new claims. As to the former, Avery understandably disagrees, aware that dismissing this appeal will preclude review of the underlying orders entered to date. So again, putting that how I understand it is, again, the state wants to go, no, we're not going to talk about the bones. Nope, because that's new. You can only talk about stuff that's been talked about before. So if you want to talk about this new stuff, then you need to just stop your current appeal, end it, and let's start all over again. So what else, who's languishing what? So no, what Kathleen wants is to put a pause. Let's put a pause here. Go back down here and talk about this bone. And then if need be, we'll go back to where we were and continue on with these bones included here. Having considered the parties' submissions, we determined that the best course of action is to grant Avery's motion to stay the appeal and to remand under Wisconsin statute, blah, 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 for action of specific issues. As the state's response acknowledges, the decision to remand is left to the court's discretion. Though we are not required to remand, we determine that this procedure strikes an appropriate balance given the specific circumstances of this case. Due to this case's extensive history, there is a benefit to having existing claims developed or litigated while they are relatively fresh, rather than positioning the claims to be procedurally banned in a future proceeding. For these reasons, we desire a ruling on the merits so that all claims to date can be considered to a single appeal. The briefing in this appeal has not commenced. There appears to be some potential overlap between the old and new issues. I should really turn this down a little bit. I'm like half my face, even though who cares? Oh my God, no, I can't, because then you won't see the little Jesus guy up there. That Sky will freak out if she can't see the thing in the window over there. Okay, therefore, and here's what the court is ordering. It is ordered that this appeal is remanded forthwith to the circuit court, which is Judge Flowers, to the circuit court to permit Stephen A. Avery to pursue a supplemental post-conviction motion raising claims for relief in connection with the state's violation of Wisconsin statute, blah, 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 and Youngblood versus Arizona, unquote. It is further ordered that any supplemental post-conviction motion shall be filed in the circuit court within 14 days. So anything else they need to add to this within 14 days has to be filed. It is further ordered that the circuit court shall conduct any proceedings necessary to address the claims raised in the supplemental post-conviction motion and shall enter an order containing its findings and conclusions. It is further ordered that if a party intends to order a transcript of any post-remand hearing, the party shall do so within 10 days after the circuit court enters its order deciding the supplemental post-conviction motion. The ordering party shall file a statement on transcript. Any such transcript shall be filed and served within 30 days after its request. The ordering party shall provide the court reporter with a copy of this order. It is further ordered that the circuit court clerk shall retransmit the record to this court within 20 days of the later of the entry of the circuit court order deciding the supplemental post-conviction motion or the filing of any post-remand hearing transcript if ordered. The record shall include any papers filed pursuant to this remand. It is further ordered that the appeal is stayed until the return of the record following remand. It is further ordered that the appellant shall file an appellant's opening brief presenting all grounds for relief within 40 days after the return of the record. So there is that. Now let me give you this real quick. So Kathleen's tweet is that she tweeted 41 minutes ago, says, Avery update. We won, a bunch of exclamation points. Back to the circuit court, hashtag truth wins. So, as I've already said, so where this is at is now Kathleen brings this back to Judge Flowers to discuss why did Wiegert give evidence to the Hallback family to dispose of like they were Teresa's bones when Sweaty Sweat Sweat said they weren't even human. And Sweaty Sweat Sweat claims that Steven killed her in his trailer and then burned her in his burn pit and then sprinkled stuff in his burn barrels. But where does the Manitowoc gravel pit come into play? Sweaty Sweat Sweat said, don't look at the gravel pit. We don't care about the gravel pit. We don't care that the dogs went there and that evidence was found there. We don't care what happened at the gravel pit because the gravel pit has nothing to do with Teresa Halbach. But Wiegert gave this bone to the Halbach family in 2011, which is wrong on multiple levels. It's wrong because you're not allowed to take evidence and give it to somebody. So that's wrong number one. Wrong number two is you guys said this wasn't Teresa. So you're admitting that's Teresa. And if you're admitting that's Teresa, then that means Steven isn't the killer because Steven didn't leave Avery Salvage. Sweaty Sweat Sweat goes on and on and on about that. How he was home and did this fire. And no, when people said they saw Steven at his gas station, no, Steven wasn't really there. Steven was always home at the salvage yard on Halloween. And Steven only got rid of her in his burn pit. So why is Teresa at the Manitowoc gravel pit? Because again, remember it goes Steven's trailer, salvage yard, Brad Ant Quarry, Manitowoc gravel pit. It's way far over there. So how was Steven over there when Sweaty Sweat Sweat says he was at home doing all this stuff to Teresa? But she was really over there. And that just happens to be near the cell tower that Bobby's phone pinged off of. Steven's phone didn't ping off over there. Well, Bobby's did. Right over there by the gravel pit. Isn't that interesting? So, this means within the next month, there's going to be something with Judge Flowers. And we'll have to see what Judge Flowers says on, is this going to be what you just got to let Steven go? That's not going to happen, even though it's what should happen. Going to get a new trial? And I haven't scrolled on anything you've said, but before people ask, this doesn't automatically get Brendan out. I said, compare it to the Ryan Ferguson case. Ryan's free and the other guy is not. The other guy confessed, just like Brendan, and he's still in there. Even though it wasn't a real confession, he dreamed it. Said he did it because of a dream. But Ryan Ferguson always maintained his innocence. Steven has always maintained his innocence. So Brendan, guilters always try to say that, guilters are always after Steven. There's many more guilters who will say that Steven's guilty and Brendan is innocent. They don't go after Brendan as hard, but people will still use that. Well, everything Brendan's saying happened, but he just put the blame all on Steven to protect Bobby. So it doesn't automatically mean that Brendan will be free, but it's going to help him. So let me scroll. Steven says, I'm glad to have joined this group. This is awesome. I want to go to the upcoming rally for Brendan. Well, Stephen, let me just tell you about the rally. I mean, I'm not going to deter you from going, but that's something we hear. We don't support any of those rallies or any of those things they do. It is of no benefit to Stephen or Brendan when they do those things. And actually, the ones they've done so far they actually hurt, because people know of making a murderer as being this huge thing that everybody cares about. And then when they have this rally and they have 30 people show up and half of those are Avery's, it doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good. So for people to just be standing there holding these signs saying, free Stephen Avery, free Brandon Dassey, it doesn't do anything. It's more for those people to feel like they're cool and part of a clique. So we here don't support or promote any of those things. But again, you want to go to those rallies or whatever they're doing, go for it. But we don't promote them here. And like when people submit them to be posted here, we just delete them because it's just it's a waste. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer on that. Angel says, hello again. TV paused again. Stephen says, my gut tells me it's her bones. They spent the 20 seconds on them in court. This is a man's life and you're only going to spend 20 seconds. Wow. Blows my mind thinking about it. Well, because Stephen, it's all they care about is getting Stephen for this. So they're not going to look at anything that's going to show that Stephen is innocent, because they didn't care if Stephen was guilty or innocent. They needed him guilty because he's going to win his lawsuit. Not saying he's going to get the $36 million he was suing for, but he's going to get a good chunk out of them, and they have to eat shit, and they don't want to do that. Sky says, hello, window Jesus. If there's a moderator watching right now, I just got a message from Newsweek saying they have a new article giving us a link. So if somebody could get that posted on Stephen Avery Project and Gossip, otherwise I'll look at it when I'm done with this live. Stephen says, I hope the Department of Justice turns Wisconsin prosecutors upside down. This case is ridiculous. And Natasha adds to it saying, such ridiculous bullshit. Oh my God, just ignore the fact they gave away evidence, right? Osea says, really feel for Stephen and his parents. How unlucky you have to be to go through this twice. Who's going to give him back all these years wasted? Such a shame. And there's nothing you can do because look at all that Stephen has lost. When they took him the first time, he's 22 years old. He has 4 kids, 2 of which twins that were just born like 2 weeks prior or whatever it was. He lost his wife. He lost his kids. His kids don't know him. His kids don't visit him. They don't know him. So you can't get back your children. You lost your wife. Then you get out. It gets overturned. First he's living in an ice shanty, which again, let's talk about, the family all cares about Stephen so much that nobody had a place for him to stay, and he's living in an ice shanty. So then he starts dating Jody. They live together in Raleigh Johnson's trailer that's next to the Avery property. We all know Jody is a drunken piece of shit, but that was Stephen's drunk piece of shit, so they're in this relationship. He's feeling good. His lawsuit, the depositions had started, and he gets taken again, loses that girlfriend. Loses everything he had. Because, so like he had his dream truck when he got out. He bought his dream truck. And now when they took him this time, it was, he asked his brothers to look out for his truck while he's gone. And I haven't talked to Steven in a while, but he would tell me how he's looking forward to getting out and getting his truck back, his F-250 or whatever it was. Well, he doesn't know that one of his brothers destroyed his truck. They're hiding that from him. So he's lost his truck that he loves so much. He'll find that out when he goes home. And, I just trying to envision everything Steven's lost. You can't get back. His parents' health. How old are they now? And what kind of shape are they in? So you've limited the amount of days. Even if they open up the doors and let Steven walk out tomorrow, his parents are not in the health they were when they took him. So it really is sad. And every time now, while Steven's been in there, Steven just wants to be loved. He wants to be in a relationship and be in love, have a family. And then he has these women prey on him who say, so then he thinks of them as a girlfriend or will call them a wife. Because, people always forget Steven has just as low, if not lower IQ than Brendan. Nobody ever talks about that. But Steven is a low IQ too. So when you see his letters and stuff, it's childish and, kind of embarrassing, but that's his mentality, right? So these girls prey on him and he thinks, oh, you're going to be my wife. And then they sell him out, sell his letters and do all that stuff. But I mean, what else is new? His very own family sells him out constantly to make money for themselves. The only family he has that truly cares about him is his mom and his dad. So there's just, how do you put a number on what has been taken from Steven? I don't know how. Shondell says, anyone from that family come forward yet? Wonder how pissed they are with the state, or maybe they knew the whole time. Yeah. Shelly says, just tuned in. What's the news? Sounds positive. Yes, it is positive. This is Steven, they're now going to talk about these bones that Uyghur illegally gave to the Hallback family, who claims that it's not Teresa's bone. And now remember, Kathleen has somebody who will do that rapid DNA ID test on this bone that within 2 hours, they will know if it's human and if it's Teresa's. I know they like to talk about, oh, this is just prolonged. Look what you're doing to the Hallback family when they try and, make you feel the sympathy for the Hallback family. It's 2 hours. It's 2 hours. But also they've tainted that because the chain of custody has been broken. This stuff is supposed to remain in evidence and you just gave it away. So somebody could try and say, oh, that wasn't really the bone that was marked as 8675. We don't know what that bone is because, we gave it to Karen Hallback. So what Karen did with it or what the funeral home did with it, who knows for sure? It could be switched. So Amy Jo says, where does this bone come from? Sorry, I'm really new to this. Don't be sorry, Amy Jo. I say all the time that new people discover this case and don't know everything that we've discussed to death. So feel free to always ask your questions. So this is a suspected pelvic bone that was found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And during the trial, Sweaty Sweat Sweat which is Ken Kratz, but I refer to him as Sweaty Sweat Sweat, so the district attorney, said that we don't even know if that's a human bone, so we're not going to pay attention to this bone. Don't look at this bone. Let's ignore this bone. And the law states evidence has to remain in evidence as long as somebody is incarcerated for the crime. So as new testing becomes available, you can look into that evidence to possibly overturn a conviction. So if you're going to take something out of evidence, Stephen has to be consulted on it and asked if it's okay to do this with that. That was never done. So the bone in 2011, and this case was 2006, but in 2011, Wiegert, one of the people that forced Brendan into a false confession, gave the bone over to Karen Hallbach. And when Kathleen Zellner took on Stephen's case 3 years ago, all the files they had given to her showed that that bone was put in evidence, and that's where it stayed. That's all there was. But then when other people FOIA'd, which stands for Freedom of Information Act, for documents, they found that that chain of custody continued on into 2011 when Wiegert is signed on it as giving it, and Karen Hallbach's signature is on there for receiving this bone, which is labeled number 8675. So why'd you give that to Karen Hallbach if Sweaty Sweat Sweat said that wasn't even Teresa? And if you're not even going to go that way, evidence has to remain in evidence. And if you're going to give it away, you have to ask Stephen's permission, which wasn't done either. So Kathleen wanted to talk about this bone in their current appeal process, but the state, trying to fight it, said that you can't talk about new stuff. Your current appeal is you can only discuss things that is in the case already. So then Kathleen filed for, she wanted a stay in remand, meaning let's put a pause in the current proceedings and talk about this bone. And then go back to where we left off here, when now the bone thing's been determined. But the state wanted them to go, no, no, no. You need to either follow your current appeal until you've exhausted that trajectory, or just stop it, look at the bone, and then you have to start your appeal all the way over from the beginning. So the court today has ruled in Kathleen's favor that the current appeal is paused. Now they go back down to the circuit court to Judge Flowers, and they're going to discuss this bone. So this is good, Amy. Debbie Lynn says, my opinion, you would make an awesome teacher speaker. Oh, well, thank you. Michelle says, he was on the phone with his girlfriend at the time as well. Yes, he was on the phone with Jody 2 different times, because also that day, Halloween, Jody was in jail, right? She wasn't in prison. She was in jail. And since she's a drunk, she was also ordered to go to these DUI classes. So Stephen would have to drive to the jail, pick Jody up, take her to her class, and then when her class was done, he would drive her back to jail. So that day, Stephen, when you look at his phone records, you can see he was talking to her lawyers and such, because for some reason that day, he all of a sudden found out that day that they weren't going to let her out. So now he wasn't going to pick up Jody. So during like lunchtime or whatever, when you look at his phone records, he was on the phone dealing with Jody's stuff. And then 2 times that night, he had talked to Jody. Yeah, so more evidence of, and he was using a landline at that time, because I believe back then a prison or a jail or whatever, they couldn't call cell phones. They could only call landlines. So you can't even say that Stephen was at the gravel pit talking to Jody on his cell phone. He was on his landline. So again, going to, if you're going to say this bone at the Manitowoc gravel pit is Teresa, then it's not Stephen. Somebody else was at the gravel pit because Sweaty Sweat Sweat says he was home all day. Michelle says, so do we have anything on Scott and Bobby? I haven't heard anything new. Michelle says, why would Barb defend Scott? My opinion is because Barb is trying, this is my opinion. This is not fact. All right. I believe that Barb doesn't want to know anything, but she knows something. And she knows Scott knows stuff on Bobby. So she's now stuck with Scott because she doesn't want Scott to turn on Bobby. That's my opinion on that. So that's why Barb defends Scott, because in defending Scott, it defends Bobby. Stephen says, I wish I was smarter. I wish I could solve the case. I've been racking my brain to see all this and know he's innocent. Yeah, I know. Everybody wishes they were smarter. Ooh, Smarties. I love Smarties. Christy says, so Flowers has how many days to give a decision? Well, Christy, that's where, you know me in numbers. I'm confused by the whole thing that they have 14 days to file any supplemental stuff, and then it's 30 days or something from there for a decision. So we should know something in a month. Should, I think. Shondell says their best move is to free him now before Kathleen exposes more. Yeah, right? Natasha says, I'd pay good money to watch Kathleen call Kratz as a witness. Steven says, I see what you're saying, but damn, you would think they would have a lot more support. Sad, really. I wish there was something the public could do to help. I'm in North Carolina and would drive to Wisconsin to support them. Well, what you're doing supports them, Steven, because everybody who has been out here looking at all this evidence, that's what's helping Stephen. Carol Ann Fitzgerald, who sent this information to Kathleen about this bone, is in Australia. You know, so I mean, she's not in Manitowoc or, you know, any of that. She's in Australia. And so what she was able to determine and then follow through and send it to Kathleen is what may be freeing Stephen. So it wasn't the high-priced lawyer. It wasn't all these experts. It was a retired police officer in Australia who put these numbers together and then said, well, I'm not going to just assume Kathleen knows everything, so I'm going to send it her way. And she was right. Kathleen didn't know, because what the state had given Kathleen did not include that they had given this bone to the Hallback family. It's because of people FOIA-ing it and getting the complete records, they were able to see that in 2011, the bones were given to the Hallback family. It's again showing how the state is covering shit up. You know, they need to get rid of that bone. So what best way to cover up evidence is to give it to the family like it's the remains of a murder victim to be cremated or buried. Poof, it's gone. And then you just don't give Kathleen Zellner that evidence log sheet showing that Uyghur turned it over to Karen Hallback. So you are helping. You don't need to go stand outside of a courthouse with 30 people to show your support for Stephen and Brendan. What does it is when you see the millions of people, when, you know, Netflix talks about how many people watch Making a Murderer Part 1 and 2. And when you see how many people like Stephen Avery Project, we have 192,000 followers. And so instead of spending your money to go from North Carolina to Wisconsin for some dumb rally, put the money in Steven's commissary for while he's there. He can buy himself some shampoo or some socks or some underwear or whatever it is that he needs, or hold on to that money and wait for when Steven gets home and then give him that money directly. Because people think automatically when you get out of prison and you're wrongfully accused, you're going to walk out with millions of dollars. No, you're not. Because look at Steven's first case. He had been out for 2 years and the depositions were just starting. He lived in a fucking ice shanty until he moved in with Jody into Raleigh Johnson's trailer. So, and he can't go get a job. Steven, for the rest of his life, can't go get a regular job. His life is in danger for the rest of his life. Whether it's going to be crazy guilters who are still going to, no matter what, see him as guilty and want to do away with him, or whack jobs who want to marry him and get him to knock them up so he now has to pay them because they have his baby. So, he and Brendan can't just, they're not going to go work at McDonald's. Their safety is at risk for the rest of their lives. So when they get freed, they're going to need some money to help, support them to, live their lives quietly as they can while, they go through the process to get their wrongful conviction money. So that's what you can do to show your support. Put it in his commissary, put it in Kathleen Zellner's, or for Brendan, put it in his commissary, or the Stephen Drizzen and Laura Nyrider. Or wait till they're free and give them the money directly. That's the biggest help you can do. Osea says, that sweaty sweat. Something about him, just couldn't trust him from the start. Even before I made my mind up who I believe. He's just creepy. He really is creepy. Everything about him. I mean, not even just his disgusting outside appearance. His voice, the cadence in the way he speaks, that he takes advantage of women who have been abused. And yes, I will say it. He's a raper. I'm not a raper. He's a raper. He was having women who didn't want to have sex with him, make them to have sex with him, or he would drop their case or their partner's case. So, he's disgusting. Mel says, this case angers me. Everybody knows he's innocent. Well, everybody with a brain. Guilters don't have a brain. Rhonda says, not just lost all the years and the kids, he also lost the experience of being a father and watching the kids grow. All his freedom and so much more. Disgusting. Kelly says, why did they destroy his truck? Drove it into the ground. Drove it until it no longer worked. Crashing it into things. Yeah. Just didn't care. They didn't pay for it. They don't care. It's Steven's truck, and they just assumed he's never getting out, and he won't know. Osea says, and I admire how he managed to remain positive through all this ordeal. I'm a Debbie Downer. I'm a glass half empty person, and when I used to talk to Steven, he was always so positive that he's getting out right around the corner. I'm not going to do this because I'll be out by then, like sign up for a new job at the prison or, anything, because I'll be out. It's like, wow, wish I was like that. I'm negative all the time. Mary says, I hate being late. So run from here to Twitter, to Reddit, to Jack's Live. I can't even read fast enough. I know, but it's great big news. So, it's an exciting day. And I said this on Stephen Avery Project when I was live there, but I literally Yesterday, I talked to Ken Pellegrini. We've got some good news in Ken's case and I'm sounding like a douchebag, I know, but I can't talk about it. So we have good news in Ken's case. And then today, Melissa Kaluzinski's dad, Paul, called me. We have some really good news in Melissa's case that I can't talk about. And so Paul had told me that right before I was going out to lunch with a friend. I go out to lunch with a friend, and then as I get in my car, I get the email with this court response. It's like, oh my God, in the last 24 hours, all 3 cases that I advocate for have had some really great positive news. And it's like, I almost want to cry. It's like so amazing. And I know I just before this was talking about how I'm so negative all the time, but I was like, oh my God, this is just, I can't believe all 3 cases in one day. And they're all Kathleen's cases too. So it's pretty amazing. Laura says, are his parents still able to visit him? They can, but they don't because they can't. I know that sounds difficult, or doesn't make any sense, but it's due to their medical issues. It's hard on them to move around and to get around and, to walk through the prison and all of that. So Dolores doesn't visit Stephen very much, but they talk on the phone like every day. So, so no, they don't visit him very much anymore. Lynn says, his cousin who started this from the beginning, is she still alive? I believe she is. I'm blanking on her name right now. Sandra Morris. Yeah, I haven't heard anything, but I don't think about Sandra Morris very often. What a piece of work that one is. Mike, I would like to see Wiegert and others responsible for giving away the bones held responsible. Will criminal charges to Wiegert and or others involved with giving away the bones be covered at the hearing in 14 days? I don't know, Mike. I know Kathleen has been asked in Q&As, could other people be charged? And she's always just said that will be up to Wisconsin. So that would be something that isn't discussed at this, anything that's pertaining to Stephen. That would be something the state of Wisconsin would have to do on its own. You know what I mean? So I don't know if they would. So I'll just wait and see. Michelle says, did he also have the info on the hard drive? What info on the hard drive? Are you talking about Bobby's stuff? You have to let me know because I ramble on. So your post was probably made when I was rambling on about something else. Rhonda says, never stops being funny, sweaty, sweat, sweat. I know, and I know it bothers him, so that's why I'll always say it. Jennifer says, oh, Big Kenny, what will happen to Big Kenny? I can't wait. I can't wait. That'll be Christmas morning. Alcia says, I can't believe they just accepted the first story fed to them about what happened to their daughter. You'd want to find out the truth, at least, when there is so much being spoken about and all the evidence, etc. I hear ya. Debbie says, not to disrespect Stephen, but I feel like he will be so excited and probably forgive all his family that didn't believe in him, but who knows? He already has, Debbie. That's why Stephen's no longer speaking to me. It's Carla, his niece Carla was pissed at me because I wouldn't promote her fundraisers for her to go to Red Lobster and have catered Thanksgiving dinners. And she says, I'm going to tell Stephen on you. And I haven't heard from Stephen ever since. So, even though he used to, for the 2 years I had been talking to him, talk shit about Carla, about the money she's stolen and all that. So to Stephen, blood will always be blood. And they know that. So they know they can treat him like shit. And he's still going to go, but it's my family. So Um, yeah. But it doesn't change my support for I believe in Stephen's innocence, and I will continue to fight for his release. He doesn't have to be my friend. He doesn't have to like me. I don't expect to, that Stephen and I are going to go out for a congratulations dinner or any of that. I'm just like everybody else who's here. None of you are expecting to go out with Stephen and meet with him. Well, some people do when they're not thinking clearly, but I'll just be happy he's free, and hopefully he's able to, enjoy the rest of his life, and I will continue then to fight for other wrongfully convicted. Michelle says, give us the gossip on Bobby and Scott and Barbara. I don't know what gossip there is. I know that Scott hates all of Barb's kids, always did. He got along with Bobby because Bobby's the only killer like Scott. They like to go out and kill stuff. They build the same hunting club. All the other Dassey boys don't like to hunt. They're not looking, they, don't get off on killing stuff. So Scott didn't care about any of the other boys. And when he and Barb then lived together, he got into physical fights with both Brian and Blaine and kicked them out. And Barb let it happen. Barb let her husband throw her boys out of the house. Still with a man who put his hands on her boys. I don't know anything about Bobby. I never met Bobby. I've only met Brian Dassey. So I met Brian Dassey, Pete Dassey. I used to talk to Brendan on the phone. So I never met Blaine. So, but there's always been something about Scott and Bobby. So, and I believe Scott, my opinion, I believe Scott helped Bobby cover up Teresa's body, get rid of the body, and then he uses it against Barb. That if Barb goes against him, he'll tell what he knows what Bobby did. So, and she's gonna protect Bobby. I feel in some ways, I feel like Barb thought and was told by law enforcement Brendan would be charged as a minor, and he was 16, and so he would get out at 18, and he was turning 17. So it's like Brendan's going to do a year, 2 years at most, as opposed to Bobby was 19. He's automatically going to be charged as an adult, and so on. So I think Barb was okay with Brendan. Brendan's a low IQ. Bobby's not low IQ. So Brendan's a low IQ. He's a child. He'll get out in a year. So that's what I think. Anne says, so very thankful that the court has seen through the state's attempts to get KZ to drop valuable motions. Here, I second that. Anne says, I wish I was a smarty. Michelle says, so when Jody was to get out, and didn't they had said they think the cops planned that so he would not have an alibi? Yeah, I mean, there's people who think that law enforcement are the ones that did whatever happened to Teresa, so that in them spying on Stephen, they knew that Teresa was going to be there that day. So they wanted to make sure that Stephen was there. Yeah. So I do not believe that law enforcement had anything to do with Teresa's disappearance. I believe law enforcement initially jumped to the conclusion that Stephen is guilty because, everybody just hates Stephen, period, and think he's, a total dirtbag. And that then, not the people that are, Colborne, Lank, the ones that were involved in the first case, but all the other law enforcement that helped with all this stuff, I believe they all thought they were framing a guilty man. That because of Stephen's depositions with Manitowoc County, that they felt that they weren't going to be able to get Stephen for this, and they thought Stephen for sure was guilty. So let's make sure it's beyond any doubt that Stephen did this. That's what I think law enforcement's involvement is. Marguerite said another reason why she married Scott, if he was charged, she doesn't have to give evidence against him. Correct. Because she married him on, what was it, the day Brendan was sentenced or something like that? Or that's when they got their house. See, again, that's dates and numbers, and I don't remember it. Jennifer says, holy cow, I didn't realize that about Carol Ann. The state continues to cover it up. Yeah, so, but it's out now because of the Freedom of Information Act that you can see. Because I remember when I saw the document, I only saw it the one time. I don't recall where it is. I know we've posted them all here, all the exhibits or whatever. But you see Karen Hallback in, pretty women writing, cursive, signing that she received it in 2011. So the state can't hide it anymore. There it is. You gave it to Karen Hallback. They admit now they've given it to Karen Hallback. They're just saying, well, we're not sure what it was we gave her. We have to look in the bag. What's in the bag? We have to look in the bag to see what's in there. We've never heard what they found in the bag. Connie says, but like it's being pointed out on Twitter, there's still no proof it was actually given to Teresa's family. No one signed for it, not the funeral home and not the family. Not correct, Connie. I saw Karen Hallback's signature on it. Wiegert signed it out and Karen Hallback accepted it. So somebody pull up those exhibits because I know I saw it. Because I remember looking at it and going, holy shit. And that's what was FOIA'd just like 3 weeks ago or whatever it was. Or maybe if Carol Ann Fitzgerald comes on here at any point, I'm sure she has it handy. Karen Hallback signed for him. Kevin says, I will drive around Wisconsin, never through it. Kevin, Wisconsin is beautiful. And it's okay for anybody to go except for me, as literally right here is my next court date with Manitowoc for the fake trespassing charge that Earl Avery filed against me. So they only go after me. They're not gonna, it's beautiful. I spent my summers in Wisconsin. I'm in Illinois and I'm in a western suburb of Chicago. So Wisconsin's not far from me. It's an hour away to get to Wisconsin from my house. I love Wisconsin. There's bad everywhere, so take Melissa Kaluzinski. That's here in Illinois, and Kent Pellegrini is here in Illinois, and Ryan Ferguson was Missouri, right? And then Kathleen took on a case that's in Texas and one in California, and, so there's shitty people in every state. So, Sherry says, I believe I saw in one of KZ's Q&A sessions that she had interviewed the funeral home staff. Anyone else? I do remember her saying something about the funeral home, but she also said she doesn't know if the bones were cremated or buried. Sarah says, sorry I'm late. What have I missed? Hopefully you've heard me talk about what it is. Christy says, he will be able to get disability when he gets out because he's going to be classified as institutionalized. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Diane says, hey, folks, been away for a while, but heard the news. Just wow. I will catch up with the live later. Way to go, Jax, for explaining everything and keeping us all in the know. Well, thank you for coming, Diane. Corey says, I so wish I could see Sweaty Sweat's face when he read it today. Yeah, he's probably got all red and tongue jarting out of his mouth, because I picture him, anybody that has seen Star Wars, or is it Return of the Jedi? I don't remember which one. I love Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars nerd, I guess you could say. So which one is it that Princess Leia in the slave costume with Jabba the Hutt, and then she's choking him with the chain around his neck and his tongue's coming out? That's how I think of Kratz. Every time he talks, it's it. Gross. Sherry says, domestic violence victims, Sweaty Sweat was re-victimizing them. Absolutely. Jamie's saying, fill me in, please. All right, I'll again summarize it quickly. So the stay and remand that Kathleen asked for, the court has approved. So this means the current appeal process gets stopped. They don't have to end it or they don't have to finish it. It's just getting a pause button. And now they're going to go back down to the circuit court to Judge Flowers to discuss this pelvic bone. And then that will need to get ruled on. And then we'll see what goes on, what happens from there. And so something should happen within a month, I'm guessing. Amanda says, I'm so glad to hear the good news on all the cases. Yeah. Debbie says, that's great. Yay, Melissa. Oh, yeah. I can't tell you the Melissa stuff, but put it this way. When Paul called me, he says, are you sitting down? That's how first thing he says when I answer the phone. So keep thinking happy thoughts for all three cases. Kent Pellegrini, Melissa Kaluzinski, and of course, Stephen Avery. Because we've got good news in all three. Let's just, happy thoughts. Christy says, in prison, you have to have that kind of attitude or there's a good possibility of catching more charges with a down attitude due to fights and such. Well, and that's something that I know about all three of them, actually, that I talked to. They have great records in there. They're not ever in trouble. And both Kent and Melissa are in prisons that they refer to as cupcake prisons. So like at Kent's prison, I mean, it's good, but it's bad. Kent is mostly surrounded by pedophiles. And the reason why that is that he's in a prison where there is to be zero physical altercations. And if there is, you're booted out of there. So, it's a nice, well, it's still prison, but it's a nicer prison that, you're not in fear. But Kent told me just recently an inmate pinched the arm of a pedophile, just pinched his arm and got kicked out of that prison and moved to one of the, not so nice ones. So that's why pedophiles are there, because obviously pedophiles are the ones that people are going to beat the crap out of. And so they put them there so nobody can touch them. And here in Chicago, we had a cop, Jason Van Dyke, who murdered a 16-year-old black kid, unarmed black kid, shot him 16 times, just murdered this kid. And so he recently got put in Kent's prison. Kent had told me, he's like, because the sentence happened. And so Kent had said that Jason Van Dyke had got to his prison 2 weeks prior and nobody knew who he was. And then now it made big news because he was sentenced. He only got 8 years for murdering a kid. All right. And Kent is in prison for raping his wife who they were in a loving relationship, 4 kids, no issues. He got 8 years. And Kent's sentences, he has to serve 85% of what he was given, as opposed to Jason Van Dyke only has to serve 50%. So Jason Van Dyke murdered a kid, and he got less time than Kent did for raping his wife. So they put Jason Van Dyke there, and it started stirring up the inmates there. Kent said, especially the black ones, because Jason Van Dyke is a white guy who murdered a black kid. So then Jason Van Dyke, for whatever reason, got transferred out of Kent's prison, and they put him in Connecticut. And upon getting there, somebody beat the crap out of him there. So, and also currently what's going on with him is we have a new attorney general who I actually campaigned for when he was running, Kwame Raoul. And so Kwame is not happy with the 8-year sentence. So he is now trying to overturn that and get him more time. So Kent was pissed about that too, of this guy is getting less time than me, and he murdered a kid. No doubt about it. It's on camera. It's video. You could watch him murder this kid. So, so that prison is Kent's prison, and Melissa's prison are the nicer prisons that you don't have to fear as much. Because like Kent was in a different prison prior to this one, and while he was sleeping, a gang came in and beat the crap out of him, and he's lost a lot of the sight out of one eye. So, you literally have to sleep with your eyes open, right? Or somebody's going to beat the crap out of you. Where he's at now, he doesn't have to worry. He's completely safe. Julie says, I'm so glad you did another live. I missed the earlier one. Well, and we always keep them, after I'm live, they're still on here. Just, I'm not here to answer questions. Niall, is that how I say that? Oh, you're just saying to somebody you might like the site for info on the case. Well, thank you for suggesting us. Julie says, I would love to be in the courtroom when Steve gets his new trial. Just imagine the tracks laid for that karma train. Well, I'm planning on going if I'm able to get in. So, if there is something that, I'm told about it and no, I'll go. Maybe we need to do a GoFundMe and pay for my hotel to stay there. And maybe some Red Lobster. Maybe I want to go to Red Lobster while I'm there. Do a GoFundMe and pay for me to go to court and have Red Lobster. Joking. Alcia says, I've just realized who Sweaty Sweat Sweat is. Sweaty Sweat Sweat, for those of you who don't know what Sweaty Sweat Sweat is I went to one of Brendan's hearings. Sorry, I literally have restless leg syndrome. It's not a fake thing. And so I can never sit still. So that's why you see me moving around all the time. I had gone to one of Brendan's hearings when it was here at the 7th Circuit in Chicago. And Kratz was there. Just like all the rest of us that we were in line to get in the courtroom. And he was like 3 or 4 people ahead of me in line. And so I took a picture of him in line. And then, because I used to write a lot of articles about everything. Now it's so much easier for me to just go live and discuss things. But I should write some stuff down too, because not everybody likes to watch a video. So when I go to these things, whether I go see a buting thing or when I've gone to buting and when I've gone to Night Rider and that kind of stuff, I bring a notebook and I take notes, and then I will write an article summarizing what I saw there. So I did the same thing when I went to Brendan's hearing. And I took notes, and then I wrote an article. And then in my article, I talked about how Kratz was sitting over, by the Hallback family. He was sitting by like the reporters from Wisconsin. And he was with his child bride. She wasn't his bride at the time, just, the child that he was doing. And she was like constantly having to touch him and rub on him and all this stuff. It was really weird. And then she would constantly look my direction. Now, I even say in the thing I wrote, I'll find it. It's because it's on freebrendan.org, but I'll find it and post it for you guys. But so I said that, she was always looking at me all creepy. I can't see where my keyboard is nope. She was looking at me all creepy. And he was sweaty. So I talked about how he was just all sweaty and gross. And so then his child bride tweeted about me, all upset that I said he was sweaty. So it really bothered her. And then she also tried to say like I broke a law because you're not allowed to take pictures or whatever. And it's like, no, you can't do it in the courtroom. We were outside in a hallway, and it said once you got up to the courtroom doors, that's when it said you couldn't do anything. I didn't do anything illegal there, but that was her trying to get me. So, not that one. Sorry, I'm scanning through all my articles to try and find that one because I don't remember what it was called on here. So, but now every time I talk about him, I just call him Sweaty Sweat Sweat because I know it bothers them so much. Are you not going to the second page so I can see what's over there? I don't remember what it's called. Nope, that's not it. Ew. That one's not it. Is this it? Let me see. Yes. Is this going to be the one? Let me scroll real quick because if it's got, yep, there's the picture of Kratz. All right. So here is that article. All right. Back to your comments. Well, here, I'll just read it since it's up here. All right, so I attended the oral arguments at the Seventh Circuit of Appeals in Chicago on Valentine's Day 2017. I am far from a legal expert and don't pretend to be. I took notes of what I saw and heard and will write that up for you here. When the date was first announced, I contacted Stephen Drizzen and asked if I could attend and if I could bring paper and pen to write an article on it. He said I could. The day prior to the court date, I called the court to ask anything special I needed to know about entering the courthouse. I was told seats are first come, first served, and that cell phones can come in but have to be turned off. The courthouse opened at 9 a.m., so we planned on to get there by 8 a.m. My boyfriend bought us a spot in a nearby parking garage, so that would be one less worry. We got up early on Tuesday to leave my house in a Chicago suburb at 6:30 a.m. When we got to the courthouse, there was a pool of press already stationed on the first floor. We had to go up to the 27th floor. We got there and had to wait in line. I noticed sweaty Ken Kratz, 5 people ahead of me in line right away. And then there's a picture where you can just see a little bit of his fat head. I started recognizing all the different press people waiting as well. Then I saw Brendan's attorney, Lauren Nyrider, and Stephen Drizzen walk past. They went into a private room. I talked with the kid in front of me to find out his thoughts on the case. Turns out he was a law student who knew nothing of the case, which there's a typo there. It doesn't say new. And I don't know if it'll be in here, but I'm just saying it as I think of it as I write it. Most of the people in the courtroom were law students. He had never seen Making a Murderer, just saw the press and decided to come check it out. Drizzen came out of the room and came over to me and pointed out my Justice for Brendan Dassey hoodie I was wearing. And he said, he knows I think it's a good thing, but asked if I would take it off. I shook his hand and introduced myself, as all my communication with him has been in messages or on the phone. He said he knows who I am. He thanked me, and then he and Nyrider walked away. I wished Nyrider good luck, and she thanked me. I then saw Laura Riccardi, one of the documentarians from Making a Murderer, in line. So let me discuss that hoodie. So the hoodie I was wearing says Team Brendan Dassey. And then it has my name on the left side on the front. And then on the back, it was designed to look like a baseball team that had Brendan's favorite number of 7. And Brendan is the one that designed these hoodies. He wanted the people that were close to him to have this and to wear this, that we were Team Brendan. And he wanted us to put our names on the front like it was by our heart. And so I wore that to court as my coat. As you see, it was Valentine's Day. So it's February in Chicago. I wore that sweat jacket as my coat. Carla and her minions then rip on me. They call me a hoodie rat. On how disrespectful I am to wear that to court and blah, 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 which, then I've done since then of showing you, watch Making a Murderer. Look at what Carla's wearing in court. Look at how Carla looks on a daily basis. She looks like a meth head. All right. And you're going to attack me for my coat that Brendan designed. It was my coat. When I got in the courtroom, my coat was coming off. Just dumb. All right. So back to the article. I don't know if I am just paranoid or what, but Kratz kept seeming to be staring at me. I am not kidding when I say he was sweating a lot. All I kept saying was sweaty, sweat, sweat. That's when it started, because in my head, it just kept chanting in my head, sweaty, sweat, sweat, sweaty, sweat, sweat. And so I said, I just can't stop thinking that when I look at that pig. The courtroom opened and we went in. We chose to sit on the side of the defense in the back row. Kratz sat on the guilty side right behind the Hallback family. I saw both of Teresa's brothers, her mom, and I don't know what you call him, her uncle or her stepdad. There were maybe 125 people total in the courtroom. It wasn't that big. There weren't any other supporters there other than us. Everyone else seemed to be law students or people who just wanted to come to watch a show. And I did sit there and count the people while sitting there. Because also when you can't have your phone and be online, it's like, what else is there to do? We sat there for a half hour. Kratz's young girlfriend kept rubbing his back and seemed to be glaring our way. That may be my paranoia again. It was just very odd. She just kept looking at us. The 3 judges came in at 9:30 a.m. Wisconsin Deputy Solicitor Peter Berg got to speak first. He started reading his prepared speech about Brendan choosing to confess and that the interrogators were just encouraging him to tell the truth and that they didn't apply any pressure. And then U.S. Appellate Court Judge Alana Rovner interrupted him. And I'm actually related to her. My maiden name is, or I should say birth name, is Rovner. Judge Rovner asked about Brendan's low IQ and said he was highly suggestible. Berg said nothing was promised to Brendan as a benefit for his cooperation. Berg claimed that they can't make any promises. Judge Rovner said Brendan was told the truth would set him free. Berg says he doesn't think Brendan thought that meant he would go free. He said Brendan volunteered the details. Then Berg started spouting off a lot of numbers. The microphones were not on. He wasn't facing me, and I am deaf in one ear. Oh, and me and numbers are not friends. So I got lost in Berg saying something about Brendan resisted their offer 35 times, denied that he shot her or that there was a fire going. When Brendan was asked about her hair, he said he didn't know. Judge Rovner said the interrogator said that he is a father and he wished he could help Brendan. He said, I am not a cop right now. It was a blatant lie. Berg said at that time the interrogators only thought Brendan was a witness. Judge Rovner said that they showed frustration when Brendan didn't say what they wanted. Berg said that the interrogator's main concern was Brendan telling the truth. And then I have in brackets, be honest, because that's the thing that, oh God, the constant, be honest, be honest, be honest. They didn't want him to make things up, be honest. Judge Rovner said Brendan was particularly suggestible. She brought up the line of questioning, who shot her in the head? Judge Rovner said that plants information to taint the confession. Berg said it is an appropriate interview technique. Judge Rovner said Brendan said they cut her hair and other various things. Brendan said they didn't know if Teresa was shot in the bedroom or in the garage until Brendan told them. Judge Ann Claire Williams asked if Brendan's age was considered. Berg said something about the ineffective assistance of counsel and that would be used against Stephen. I kind of got lost in this part as I couldn't hear. They kept citing the Sullivan case. No, I told you I do not know the law at all. So I see in Nyrider's brief, it is Kyler versus Sullivan. When I look it up, I find brief fact summary. Respondent challenges his murder conviction on the grounds that his counsel's representation of his co-defendants presented an unacceptable conflict of interest that denied him effective assistance of counsel. Synopsis of rule of law. Defendants alleging a conflict of interest in cases in which multiple defendants are being represented by the same attorney in the same matter must demonstrate an actual conflict that adversely affected the outcome. Judge David Hamilton asked if there was any physical evidence that a rape or a wound to Teresa Hallback's throat occurred. Berg said no, because the body was burned. Judge Hamilton said, so they only have Brendan's confession. Berg said there weren't any promises of leniency. Any promises were vague. Judge Rovner said the police were allowed to induce a confession to get a confession. Judge Rovner asked why was the May 13th interview not introduced to trial? Was it because of a ruling? Berg said he wasn't sure. And then my parentheses when I write an article and I want to submit my personal thoughts on something, so you know for sure it's not something like the court said, but this is something coming from me, I put it in parentheses. So then I said, or in brackets, I said, I am sure Kratz was dying to raise his hand like a sweat hog and proclaim he knows the answer. Judge Rovner said it is unreliable. Berg said Brendan chose to make that call to the police. Judge Rovner said they told Brendan that he doesn't want to be lying to his mom. I really thought Judge Rovner was awesome. She just kept reading from the, and then in my brackets, coerced confession. Berg kept saying it was voluntary. When put in context to what the judge is reading, in my opinion, Berg just looked ridiculous. Berg was done at 9:52 a.m. Laura Nyrider went to the podium. She began reading her prepared speech. She said the interrogators told Brendan that they know he is scared, he is going to be arrested, but they think he will be all right. They said they already know what happened. Judge Hamilton interrupts Nyrider like Judge Rovner did to Berg. He asked if there's another case where the child thought they were going back to school. Nyrider said they told Brendan that is okay because they already know. Judge Williams brought up that Sullivan case again. She asked if the police knew about Brendan's intellect. Nyrider said they knew he had an IQ of 73. Brendan was in a special ed support system. She said they knew his age. Nyrider said it isn't relevant if they knew his IQ. It was their suggestions. They repeated it like a drumbeat. Judge Hamilton said Brendan did hear his Miranda rights and was told they can't make any promises. Nyrider said that Len Kaczynski did not turn over evidence of the video that Michael O'Kelly did, so the defense didn't know the pressures they put on him on May 12th. They don't just say that everything is going to be okay. They say they know he's scared of arrest, but he's okay. Nyrider said that's enough for a 16-year-old developmentally challenged boy to think he was going back to school. Judge Hamilton asked who was the source of him cutting Teresa's throat after she was raped. He said that it was either known from memory or it was made up. He said it was contradictory. It comes out slowly, but was Brendan's free will. Nye writers said they let him embellish till he got to their plot point. They gave Brendan false promises of leniency. They gave him each step and they allowed him to tell their story. They said Teresa Hallback was shackled to a wooden headboard, yet there were no marks on it. Brendan was just trying to guess how Teresa was killed. There's not a trace of forensic evidence of Teresa Hallback or Brendan being in that trailer. Judge Rovner brought up the closing arguments in Brendan's case when Kratz said that an innocent person would not confess, but they know many who have. Nyrider said that false confessions happen all the time. She cited the Central Park Five. Nyrider said they now use Brendan's interrogation to teach what not to do. Was there any physical evidence linking Brendan to a murder? No. They led him to say that the shooting happened in the garage because of the bullet they found. When Brendan was first asked where she was shot, he said by the fire. Nyrider said the investigators provided Brendan the answers they wanted him to say, like that Teresa's electronics were in the burning barrel. Nyrider was done speaking at 10:14 a.m. Berg got a chance to speak one more time. He again says that nothing said to Brendan was a promise. Berg claimed Brendan got specific warnings. Berg said these were Brendan's memories of Teresa Hallback. None of this was suggested. Brendan is the only one who said he heard Teresa screaming and saw her chained to the bed. He saw her crying, that there was an awful smell when her body was burning. Berg said Brendan said all that voluntarily. He was done speaking at 10:18 a.m. Judge Rovner said that both sides were very well briefed and it will be taken under advisement. That was the end of the hearing. What is my takeaway from this? I always stay positive in both Brendan and Stephen's cases. My heart and my head both say that this went very well for Brendan. Nyrider is so impressive. I have complete faith in her. The judges can take 6 to 9 months before they rule, so we are back to waiting. As soon as I hear of a decision, it will be posted immediately. Until then, please think happy thoughts for Brendan. That boy needs to go home and get to just chill out playing video games for hours. So, all right. So there's that. Let me scroll into your stuff. Shannon says, being a local, less than 30 minutes from the Averys, I'm so flipping excited about all of this. Yeah, I can't imagine, how you guys up there are so inundated with this case all these years. We're all new to it. For people again asking what happened, Zellner, the court agreed to put a pause in Stephen's appeal, and now we'll go back to Judge Flowers to talk about the pelvic bone that they gave to the Hallback family. People saying Barb knows something for sure. Marguerite saying Brendan was used as a scapegoat as they didn't think he would get that many years. So they really can't change their minds now, right? Alyssa says it was during the trial Barb married Scott. Thank you. Kayla says the Hallbacks and the Averys need to sue the hell out of Manitowoc County and whoever was associated. It's insane to think there's people out there still believing myth when they've been shown facts, purely out of stupidity or hate. Such a shame. Very nice post. Michelle says, Wisconsin is beautiful. There are a lot of good people there. Yes. Lisa Marie says, Barb was in divorce court the day Brendan confessed on March 1st. Correct. One of the times that Brendan was, yes, she was in divorce court, divorcing Tom Yanda. Lisa says the police knew about Barb's court appointment and took advantage of that information and pulled Brendan out of school to be questioned. Well, but it's also not illegal to do so. I just saw here in Illinois, I'm involved in politics here, So I have friends on my Facebook who are like state reps and all that kind of stuff. And so one of our state reps just had a post the other day how a kid was taken in for questioning on something and no adult is ever told. And how these kids are now trying to do something about it, you know. And so people don't realize that it is completely legal to take these kids out of school, don't tell the parents, take them to the police station and question them. Our kids need to be, isn't it sad that our kids need to be protected from our law enforcement? Michelle says, that makes me sick about Barb. I was hoping she was just in a bad place. Poor Brendan suffers. Well, she uses him like a pawn, you know. So when Barb starts to feel threatened by you, because that's what she did with me, is she starts to feel like you're going to take her son away from you, from her. So then she'll tell Brendan all this horrible stuff about you and tell Brendan that he's not allowed to talk to them anymore. So, and then she and Scott have done things before, like they'll name a supporter his girlfriend and then take her to go visit Brendan. And that is so horrible to do to Brendan, that he thinks he's got a girlfriend now. And you bring this girl, and then now this girl's gone. Who was that girl? Well, her dad is somebody who regularly gives Barb money. So in return, for a little while, that girl got to say she was Brendan's girlfriend. It's sick. Michelle says, Scott on Making a Murderer 2 didn't seem so bad, and he seemed to love Brendan. Yeah, that's what he says for the cameras. Talk to him when there's no cameras around, and he's pissed off and says Brendan's not coming to live in his fucking house because, you know, he can't have his knives and his guns and stuff if Brendan's out on bond. And if he thinks he's gonna come to my fucking house and sit here and play video games all day, no, he's getting a job, which of course he can't get a job. Oh, and I see Carrie now just posted, because Newsweek always messages us when their new articles are out for us to post their articles. So Carrie just posted a Newsweek article. So I haven't read that yet, so I don't know what's in there, but you'll be able to see that. Thank you, Carrie, if you're watching the live. So Scott has said some quite awful things about Brendan. Like he was going, if he got out on bond, he was going to make him violate it so he'd go back in because he didn't want him home. Michelle says the hard drive that was withheld seems to be huge too. Is this been forgotten? Yeah. Julie says KZ has 14 days to respond. Then it's up to circuit court to schedule hearing. Who knows how long that will take? Well, I believe it has to be 30 days from the response, right? That's what that says. You have the 14 days that Kathleen could submit any supplemental motions or whatever, and then within 30 days from that, right? That's what I think. Chris says, how do you think this will impact Brendan in his release? Will his lawyers be able to use this? The lawyers will be able to use this, but Stephen getting out doesn't mean that Brendan gets out because he confessed. Debbie says, Jax, do you know if it's true that the mother of the kid that was killed by Van Dyke, did she give him up to the state and win big money case over that? Debbie, what's really funny is when Jason Van Dyke got the shit beat out of him, I posted it on my personal Facebook page, happy that he got the shit beat out of him. And then a cousin of mine messaged me, and she no longer lives in Illinois. She lives out of state, but she was raised here. And she's like, I just thought you should know that he's my cousin. You know, no relation to me, her cousin on the other side. And I'm like, well, I don't care. He's a killer. And she's like, well, you know, it's hard on his family. And I'm like, I don't care. He's a killer. So that's the extent of what I know about that. I haven't looked into anything on the Van Dyke family. I did attend one of Jason Van Dyke's hearings. And when there are rallies or protests or whatever in support of Laquan or against Jason Van Dyke, I always put him on my calendar that if I'm free to go to it. But no, I don't know anything about Van Dyke's family other than my cousin telling me that she's related to them. But she's related to them by marriage, not blood. Kathy says, how long left so I can start from the beginning? I missed a notification. Well, I got off in a little thing here now since I read my article. So I'm just scrolling to the bottom of these, whatever these comments are, and then I'll end it at that. It's currently 6:02 p.m. So I should be done shortly, Kathy. And then Kathy says, side note, what happened to your fake ticket or fake charge? I have a pre-trial date in March that they said I do not have to attend in person, that I can call in. But then a thing with that is I literally have something else to do that day. The Illinois ACLU does a luncheon once a year. It's their big gala, and I volunteer for the ACLU. I've done it. This will be my 3rd year, and it's the same day as the ACLU gala. So, and my pretrial hearings at 9:30 a.m. and I have volunteered to start work in Chicago at 9 a.m. So what I'm going to do, I have been advised to file for a continuance. But then other people say I could just get screwed over. So I'm just going to charge headphones and bring that to the ACLU event. And I'm going to tell them I need to do this call real quick. And because I wouldn't think that call is going to take really long. So I'll do my online court date. When I went a couple weeks ago, I left them with all my evidence. I have video proof that I was here in Illinois on the date that they charged me. So that they claim I was trespassing in Wisconsin, 3 hours away from here. So hopefully it'll just get dropped when I call in, and it'll be really quick. Or they're going to set a court date for me. Tammy, are you saying there's a new tweet from Kathleen that happened just now? Here, let me click to go back to Twitter. Okay, so Kathleen says she posted 22 minutes ago, and she said, we are going to have an extraordinary number of constitutional violations when we are done. The Court of Appeals is letting us create an avalanche of evidence in this record. Higher courts rule. # truth wins. So that's her tweet 22 minutes ago. Let me just go directly on our page. So she pinned the one that she made 2 hours ago that says, Avery update, we won, in a bunch of exclamation points. Back to the circuit court, # truth wins. So, and then we are going to have an extraordinary number of constitutional violations when we are done. The Court of Appeals is letting us create an avalanche of evidence in this record. Higher courts rule. So I'm assuming that's she's got the 14 days to file all this stuff. And then Tammy says there will be a lot of civil rights violations. Somebody's talking. Okay. Well, I haven't gotten all the way down here yet. Somebody's messaging me about talking to me in live or something. Christy says, I heard the phone call with Stephen where she was hollering at him about why they're going after her and her husband. Yeah, that was a big thing. Leanne says, oh God, I just spent an hour watching your last live and didn't realize you were live here. Yeah, well, Leanne, that's what I typically do when we get new big evidence. Is I'll first go live on Stephen Avery Project because that's where we have the most followers. That's 192 thousand. So I go live there. And then I follow it up here in gossip. So I went live in Stephen Avery Project for an hour. And then I hopped on here, and I've been on here now for an hour and 39 minutes. Oh my God. So I've been live for the last 3 freaking hours. People have got to be so sick of me. Okay, that email's nothing. Kathy says, thanks, Jax. We'd rally, but you don't like that. No, go ahead. I never tell people not to rally. I'm an activist. I can't tell you how many rallies I've organized, how many rallies and protests and everything. So if you want to go to a rally, go. I just say, for me, I'm not supporting any of that crap that Carla and her minions do. Leanne says, sorry for my bad language. It just winds me up. Oh, my language is way worse than yours, so I'm not offended by language at all. Tammy says, what happened? I have been sick for 3 days. Oh, Kathy says, rally about my fake charge. Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Well, Tammy, hopefully you've heard, but to try and summarize short, the court agreed with Kathleen that they're putting a pause in Stephen's current appeal, and they're going back down to Judge Flowers to discuss these bones that Wiegert gave to the Hallback family in 2011 like they were Teresa, which is wrong on multiple levels. Is wrong because those bones are evidence, and you can't give away evidence. It has to remain there to be used in future testing. But also, these bones are bones that Sweaty Sweat Sweat said isn't Teresa, because they were found at the Manitowoc gravel pit. So if those bones are Teresa, then it means somebody else killed her, not Stephen. Because Stephen didn't go to the gravel pit, according to Sweaty Sweat Sweat. Sweaty Sweat Sweat said he was home at the salvage yard the whole time. So you're getting rid of evidence that you're not allowed to do. You're giving it to the family. Why does it go to the family when you say it's not Teresa? So Stephen did not get a fair day in court. So that's what's going on. So Tammy says, oh my God, that is amazing news. Yes, it is. And Leanne says, you look so overwhelmed by all the good news you have had today, Jax. Let's hope it keeps coming. Well, in my local politics here, we have an election tomorrow night. The Chicago election is tomorrow night. And then for my little county, we have an election Wednesday night, which the election we're doing Wednesday night is getting really ugly, really dirty. It's really, really nasty. And a lot of it just makes me so incensed and so angry and pissing me off, where I just sit here going, why do I continue with this politics stuff? Now, I'm a nasty person. I can get down with the best of them. And I'm do I even want to say I'm the bad guy? It's like, I'll have people who are running for office, when they want something released about their opponent, they give it to me under the radar for me to expose it. And I do, because it's like, it's not, I'm not lying. I'm not doing made up shit, whatever, it's like, so like I recently exposed about somebody who was busted for embezzling from their job and sold $70,000. And this is somebody talking in politics and was accusing my candidate of misappropriating funds, all because they've hired a lawyer to defend them against some accusations. So you're misappropriating funds for hiring a lawyer, but I know you went to jail for embezzling $70,000 from your job. So I posted a record. Another person in my current thing, she's got multiple DUIs. I posted that. Now she has a meeting. I went to her meeting last Monday, a week ago, and she's serving alcohol at her meeting. So right while she's talking too, I got up and took a nice picture of all the alcohol there that she's serving at her meeting. Somebody who's had multiple DUIs. I exposed the shit out of that too. So, but a lot of this stuff gets me so angry. And it's like, so why am I continuing on with the politics shit that is just so many slimy, nasty fucking assholes when I could be concentrating on freeing the wrongfully accused, which is obviously going to have its own frustrations, but doesn't seem to be nearly as bad as the stuff I'm dealing with here. And I'm used to people saying bad things about me. I don't care. I say all the time, I have to care about the person to care about what their thoughts are of me. I don't care. You can call me fat. You can call me ugly. You can call me stupid. You can say you don't like me. You can say I'm a bitch. All that. I'm not going to disagree. I don't care. But then when you attack people that I care about in whatever way, so that's how I am with Steven or Brendan or whatever, I'm going to come out swinging. But then, so last week I went and visited both Kent and Melissa in one day. So Melissa's prison is like a 2-hour, 15-minute drive from me. So I went to Melissa's first, and so went to her prison. I visited her for 4 hours. And then Kent's prison is another hour south from Melissa's. So then I drove to Kent's prison and visited him for 4 hours, and then drove the 3 hours back. And so like on the drive too, I'm like, why do I spend the time that I do on politics? And instead I should just look more into these kinds of cases, because like when you go and visit Melissa and Kent and you see how much they appreciate that you take this time out to go visit them, it's like, am I being selfish to go, it makes you feel good that you did something good, as opposed to this politics stuff. I just get so pissed, and then, so Kent called me yesterday and with some good news that, I can't talk about, which I know sounds like a douchebag. So Kent gave me some good news yesterday, and Kent is feeling really good and really positive. And then Paul Kaluzinski calls me today and starts out the call by saying, "Are you sitting down?" And so he tells me something that is so good, and I can't talk about it. And so then after I got off the phone with Paul, I went to meet a friend for lunch who wanted to talk about the icky politics thing that's happening here locally. So I had to go in and update her on all that stuff that's going on there, because we have a vote on Wednesday. And so she wanted to know what was going on, so she knows about the vote. And then when I get in my car from lunch, I have the email where I was sent this. Oh, and I got to pay for that, because they send me the filing, but then they also send me a bill to pay for it. So when I'm done with this live, I'll pay for it, because I like to pay them right away too, because it's like, yay, because they sent this to me without me even asking for it. I didn't even know there was a filing. She just sent it to me, and it's like, that's awesome, right? So it's like, oh my God, all 3 of these cases, there's good news. And so it's like, I'd really like to spend more of my time with the good stuff. But there's a lot of not good in these cases too, because look at, Kent's been in prison 3 years. Melissa's been in prison 10 years. Doesn't come quick, but right now, all 3 of them, something good has happened. Let me scroll. Leanne says, love it. No fucks given. Just walks up and takes pic. Love it. Oh yeah. I'm mean. And I'm called abrasive. That used to actually be what my Facebook name was before I started, where I had to change it, make it my actual name. I was Jax the Abrasive. I own it. So, but for people I care about, I'm good. But if you're an asshole, I'm going to treat you like an asshole. Melissa says, what happened with the alleged trespassing you dealt with? I have a pre-trial date next month. Leanne says, how is Melissa? I bet you were exhausted. Oh God. Yeah, it was exhausting. I've never visited Melissa one-on-one before. I've always visited with either Paul or Paul and Cheryl. So, but I did ask Paul's permission first. I didn't even think about seeing Melissa in advance. Kent had asked me if I would come visit him. Kent is somebody he doesn't want any money. He won't take money from anybody. He loves your letters though, and Kent will write you back. Letters mean the world to him. He doesn't want to put anybody out to come visit him. He calls me when he wants to call me. But since he knows that there's supposed to be some decision on his case coming up in the, next 90 days, he's getting a little stir crazy. So he asked if I would come down. And so I'm like, okay, yeah. So we scheduled, the Wednesday for me to come down. And it wasn't until Tuesday that I was like, well, wait, if I'm already going to go down to visit Kent, Melissa's down that way too, why don't I just make a day of it and visit them both? So then I called Paul and I asked his permission to go visit Melissa without him because, I'm used to Barb won't let you go visit Brendan without her. She wants to be there to supervise your visit until at least the first couple times. And then if she trusts you, she'll let you go without her. But then if you go without her, she gets pissy that you went without her. So, I wanted to make sure Paul was okay with it. And he's like, oh yeah, totally fine. So it was really cool to visit with Melissa, just me and her, so, we were able to have girl talk. And Melissa is truly like the sweetest thing ever. She really is so sweet. Something I can say about my visit with her is Melissa told me on a prior visit that she's got skin issues, that her skin gets irritated by stuff. And so like the soap or whatever they're given there, it's, she breaks out from it, gets rashes or whatever. And, but if people put money in her commissary, she can buy different soap. And it's not her being a diva. I know some people might think that, I totally am not a diva. I mean, look at me, yes, I've showered today, but my hair's not done. Hair, no makeup, I've got huge bags under my eyes. I don't care, but I have a skin issue myself and I can only use Aveeno soap and lotion. And I mean, Aveeno is not top of the line, no fancy schmancy thing, but I need to use Aveeno. I still get the constant little things all over, that itch. But Melissa told me that their dryers at the prison are broke. And so her and her cellie, she's in a 2-person cell. And so they've got this heating vent. And so they've opened the heating vent and they try and hang their clothes up by the heating vent. And then each of them have a fan. And so they have one fan here and one fan there. So they're trying to circulate the air around the room to dry their clothes. And she says, so it takes 2 hours to dry their clothes. And so while I'm there visiting with Melissa, I can see her scratching. And so I can see big pink marks on her skin and everything. So, so if people would just put money in her commissary, she can buy the soap she needs. It's still not going to help her with her dryer. But she did say people could write to the warden. I forgot to mention that before, now that I'm talking about it now. So she says people could write to the warden and stuff at her prison and talk about how this is, like cruel and unusual punishment, or, and also she works in the kitchen. So, is it a health code violation that they're not being supplied with clean clothes and they're going to work in a kitchen? So, yeah. But it was a really nice visit with both Melissa and Kent. And so I may start doing that like once a month, that I'll do the double and go visit both of them, unless they're out. Leanne says, I'm not aware of Kent's case. I'll have to look into it. Best of luck. We don't need to know, as long as it works out. That's all that matters. Can't imagine being in prison all those years for something you didn't even do. Well, Kent's case, there's really not much you can find out about his case. There's, his isn't a murder case. So there isn't, it's not cool or popular or whatever you want to say, because he's in for raping his wife. And his side isn't out there. And it's something that really upsets Kent. And so there'll be some days when he'll call me because I've got information that he sometimes tells me, release it, release this. But then he'll say, wait, no, don't do it. And now when I just visited him, he explained to me why that is. And that is because he has 4 children. So I believe the youngest is 8 now, and the oldest is 17. So his case basically is, his wife lied to get rid of Kent and to get all his money. Kent had money. Kent told me that Kathleen told him, you're lucky you weren't murdered, for this money. Kent still, he's been in prison for 3 years. He pays $6,000 a month in child support for his 4 kids. $6,000. He's in prison. There's no money coming in. It's coming out of his 401k. So, so there's a lot in his case that shows what an evil, conniving bitch his wife is, or ex-wife. They're divorced now. So in order for him to tell his side, he's going to talk about it. It will expose how horrible his children's mother is. And so that bothers him. So then he's like, wait, no, don't do it. So he already has no contact with his kids, so Lord knows what she's been telling those kids about him, much like Stephen losing his 4 kids. But eventually it's going to come out, because, if he's able to get this overturned, it's going to make the news and go everywhere, but so I guess he just doesn't want to do that until it's actual time to do it. So if you were to research Kent's case, you're not going to really find anything except stuff saying that he raped his wife. Just know he's innocent. His wife is a blackout drunk. And so she even testifies that she doesn't remember anything. She's just saying, well, she was blacked out. Her husband had sex with her, and she's saying it was rape. Whatever. Christy says, wait, what? Can't he be visited without her permission? He is an adult. No, Barb does not treat Brendan like an adult. You have to go. Barb holds the keys to Brendan. So that's also why Pete Dassey has to eat her shit. Eat Scott Toddock's shit. Scott treats Pete like a piece of shit. You know, the things he has posted about Pete Dassey. But Pete won't be able to visit Brendan if Barb takes that away. So, Leanne says, you can't help being sensitive to shit. I am to certain wash powder, etc. It's one of those things that ain't our choice. Poor girl. Get a post up for people to write and complain. See if any of it can help. Yes, I'd say so. Hygiene and all that. Wow, it's shocking. Dread to think what she's been telling them. Evil fuck. Poor man having his kids turned against him too. Guys on here, you might want to put on the earmuffs. But when you're a woman in prison and you have your period, they're just going to give you the gross, generic, big old pads. Most women, or lots of women, when they have their period, they want a tampon. You don't want to be sitting in your blood all day. And they limit you to how many you can have. But through commissary and your own money, you can buy some marked up boxes of tampons. You know, so again, going towards, you know, commissary, it's important. You know, you'll have people that think people in prison, we're supporting them. And, you know, this is, it's the life. They're given bare minimum in there, and you have to pay for anything else that you want. Or not just want, need. I'm sorry. Tampons are a necessity. Sorry. Deodorant, soap, socks, underwear, necessities. But if you want those things, you gotta buy them. So, all right. I've been on here 2 hours, way too long, and I was an hour before, so 3 hours. So I'm going to end this now. So stay tuned. Anytime we find anything, we'll post it. If you guys find it before us, you know, post it. Just know to, you know, so like even today with Kathleen's tweet, everybody then submits it to us to post. So if we're going to get a Zelnami of tweets, we're just going to post one of them, you know. So if your submitted post is deleted, it's not because it's anything against you. It's because just one is getting posted. Please don't take offense. You know, it's not about who gets to post what first. It's that it's there, you know. So if you get it before us, comes our way, you see it, please post it. You're welcome to share links to other things here, as long as it isn't, I do not allow things from most of the YouTubers, actually. So almost any YouTuber that maybe you guys watch, I either will not approve their post, or if another moderator does and I come across it, I delete it. Because these are people that I know are just doing this to make money off of Stephen and Brendan, and I don't like it. So Rubber Ducky, I do not have an issue with. So the Rubber Ducky videos or whatever, those are fine. But so anything that comes from Carla or Barb or basically a lawyer, all that stuff, I won't have here. So you're welcome to go visit their pages to see their crap there. We're not sharing it here. Sorry. I guess I'm a bitch, but I'm a bitch. So, oh my God, 12:30 a.m. there. And sorry. Yeah, it's 6:30 p.m. here. So, all right, I'm out. Talk to you guys soon.